It is week 9 of the NFL season. Johnny Talk Sports here to provide you with my week 9 NFL predictions. But before I get to that, we have the NFL trade deadline to go over. And it was a trade deadline day like no other. It felt like every single minute something was going down. And there was a lot more that happened than I expected. I expected maybe 2 or 3 small things to take place. But we had a couple of big things to go down, and let's go over it. The day began with the Lions trading tight end T.J. Hockenson to the Vikings, and you rarely see trades take place within divisions. But the Vikings make a big play for Hockenson as it was announced that Irv Smith is going to be placed on IR. And he's going to miss about 6 to 10 weeks, I believe the report was. And it probably might even be longer than that. So now the Vikings add in another weapon for Kirk Cousins, as this is a massive upgrade at tight end. I feel like Hockenson is low-key, maybe a top 6 tight end, because I like how productive he is. Whether if it's in the red zone, on third down, or by being a blocking tight end. Very productive, great pickup here for the Vikings. The Bears traded Roquan Smith to the Ravens. A big win here for the Ravens. They get a very productive linebacker. In fact, leading the league in tackles currently. And that just adds in a spark to a very inconsistent Ravens defense. The Bears acquired Chase Claypool from the Steelers as Justin Fields has another target to throw to. And this is a big win here for the Bears, as we have seen some flashes of the Bears offense in these last couple of weeks. And a big need for them was a wide receiver, and they get a young, talented receiver in Chase Claypool. The biggest trade, I think, of the day that went down, the Broncos traded Bradley Chubb to the Dolphins. And I fully expected Bradley Chubb to be dealt somewhere by the end of the day. Because the Broncos, they need to get draft picks back. Because they invested so much in Russell Wilson, and it's not working out. The Broncos are 31st in scoring offense. And they just need to get draft capital back. And I'm surprised they didn't trade Jerry Jeudy as well. In fact, there were reports that they were going to, and the Giants were interested, but the Broncos' asking price was too high. So I would imagine it was going to be at least 2 first-round picks and maybe even a second or a third. Chase Edmonds was traded from the Dolphins to the Broncos as part of the Bradley Chubb trade. So Chase Edmonds is likely going to line up behind Melvin Gordon. At least that is my prediction for right now, but we won't be able to find out until next week as the Broncos have their bye week this week. So if you have Chase Edmonds in fantasy, hang on to him for right now and wait until at least week 10's matchup and see how much involved he's going to be in this Broncos offense. Jeff Wilson was traded from the 49ers to the Dolphins, as Jeff Wilson is reunited with Mike McDaniel. And I imagine that Jeff Wilson is going to get quite a bit of productivity in this Dolphins running game, as Mike McDaniel now has 2 former Niner running backs at his disposal. So Jeff Wilson, I think, is going to be productive down the stretch. The Falcons traded Calvin Ridley to the Jaguars, and this is a very nice investment pick for the Jaguars. The Falcons, they freed up some money. They freed up some cap space with this move. And even though I didn't like this at first, as someone that follows the Falcons quite heavily, I just realized that it isn't the worst thing, as Calvin Ridley was never going to suit up to the Falcons again anyway. So it's best to trade him and get at least a couple of picks out of this. Nyheim Hines was traded from the Colts to the Bills, as I expect Hines to get heavily involved in the passing game, as he has the most receiving yards by a running back since, I believe, 2018 is what they said. So Hines in PPR league, this is a huge pickup if you happen to own Nyheim Hines. And if you're just handcuffing him with Jonathan Taylor. Now, Nyheim Hines is freed up. And I would not be surprised, actually, if Hines eventually evolved into the Bills' RB1. James Cook was traded to the Colts as part of the Nyheim Hines trade. Rashad Fenton was traded from the Chiefs to the Falcons. The Falcons get some secondary help, but the Falcons ended up trading safety Dean Marlowe to the Bills. So as far as the trade deadline, some teams made some moves, others didn't make moves at all. I'm surprised that the Packers didn't try to go hard for Brandon Cooks or even Elijah Moore. I'm surprised that Kareem Hunt wasn't traded. I expected Kareem Hunt, Brandon Cooks to be traded by the deadline. But neither of them were traded. They are staying put. As far as the big winners of the day, I'd say the Dolphins are first by getting Bradley Chubb and Jeff Wilson. Bradley Chubb's going to be a monster in this Dolphins defense, and Jeff Wilson, he's going to be productive because Mike McDaniel, he knows Jeff Wilson very well. And I'd say second would go to the Ravens, and then third, the Vikings. I think that's my top three as far as the trade deadline winners. The Ravens get an upgrade with their defense that has been inconsistent throughout the year, and the Vikings are getting a productive tight end in TJ Hawkinson. And I can't wait to see how these trades start to look in games. So without further ado, let's get to the Week 9 NFL predictions. Last week, I had my best week of the season, 10-5, and I'm hoping I can have another 10-win week this week, but it's going to be more difficult than it was last week, as there's only 13 games this week, so the margin for error is smaller than what it was last week. But, as always, we begin with TNF, and this week, TNF features the Eagles and the Texans. Well, TNF doesn't generate good games all too often, but at least we have one good team in this game, the Eagles, a 7-0 team, a team that last week dominated the Steelers coming off their bye, and a Texans team that is just completely broken down into shambles right now, and it has been for years. Top receiver Brandon Cooks demanded a trade, and the fact that he wasn't dealt at the deadline makes me think he's going to demand a release, or he's just going to stop playing altogether and pull an Antonio Brown. And the Eagles, they should win this game pretty easily. Vegas currently has the line. I think Eagles is a 13-point favorite, a 13.5-point favorite, but if you ask me, the line should be Eagles at minus 17.5, minus 18. Because the Eagles, they should win this game by at least 20 points. I expect this to be a 41-14 type of game where Jalen Hurts just has a dominant performance, and the Texans, well, they just need to start finding their future identity, as they have done so just in this past draft. Derek Stingley, I'd say he's a big-time gem for later on in the future, as is Dameon Pierce. Moving on to the Chargers and the Falcons, and if this matchup was 4 weeks ago, I would say the Chargers are going to dismantle the Falcons. But this Falcons team has been resilient all season long. Even though they are 32nd in pass defense, it would translate to your quarterback having a big game. But I don't know if that's going to be the case, as the Chargers, they are absolutely decimated with injuries. I don't think there's a team right now that is more decimated by injuries than the Chargers. And the Falcons, they have been running the ball well. The Falcons have been stopping the run pretty well. And Cordell Patterson is expected to be back next week for the Falcons. And Marcus Mariota, he's been putting in some solid work for the Falcons. There are some Falcons fans, including myself, that have wanted to see Desmond Ridder in game time action to see what he's made of. But I just don't think the Falcons are going to make that move just yet. Right now they find themselves leading the NFC South. And if they can win this game somehow, in the next 5 games for them, I think the sky's the limit. As the next 5 games, all those games are pretty winnable. So the Falcons, they might go on some sort of big winning streak if they win this week. But I am going with the Chargers. I do think, however, the Falcons are going to compete in this game really hard, and like they have all season, with the exception of maybe the first quarter against the Bengals. But the Chargers win at the end. The Dolphins and the Bears. Now, this is another simple pick for me as well. The Dolphins, in my opinion, big winners of the trade deadline, bringing in Bradley Chubb to an already underrated defense. The Bears, they gave up their best player on defense, the leading tackler in the league, and they ended up getting Chase Claypool from the Steelers, which that does, I think, open up the passing game quite a bit for Justin Fields, as he has another target to throw to. We saw Cole Kmet get involved in the Bears passing game last week. He's getting more involved as the weeks have gone on and progressed. But when Tua finishes a game for the Dolphins, they're undefeated this year. So I'm picking the Dolphins to win. Panthers and the Bengals. And I think it's very fitting that the Bengals played on Halloween last week, because they sure tricked me into thinking that they're a contender, that they're back. And there was a comment last week in the comment section on why the confidence in the Bengals all of a sudden. I should have known that maybe I shouldn't have gotten so confident in the Bengals moving forward. At the same time, though, Jamar Chase is out for the next 3 to 5 weeks, and they get dismantled by the Browns on Monday Night Football. Even though the Browns absolutely destroyed the Bengals last year in Cleveland, I just feel like the Bengals, they should have performed a lot better, because they were a team that was trending up. And I get that a big reason why they was because of Jamar Chase, as Jamar Chase was pretty inconsistent last season, and Jamar Chase has had those boom or bust games this year. I think they'll get back on the winning track and win this week, but the Panthers are going to make them earn this one every minute of the game. I expect the Panthers to do nothing but run the football, complete ground and pound with Donta Foreman and Chuba Hubbard, if he is going to be playing in this game, as Hubbard was out last week. So I expect the Panthers to be in this game from start to finish, and this game is going to be much closer than what the experts in Vegas might think. I have no idea what the line is for this game right now, but if it's by more than a touchdown, I really wouldn't mind. This is not betting advice or anything, but I wouldn't mind just throwing down some coin on the points. Just saying. Packers and the Lions. The Packers are now on a 4-game losing streak, and they had the opportunity to trade for a talented wide receiver. Jerry Jeudy was on the trade block. Brandon Cooks was on the trade block. Chase Claypool. Elijah Moore, although the Jets took offers for Elijah Moore, but they wouldn't budge. I don't know why. They're not using Elijah Moore. It's honestly dumb. But if they lose this game, if the Packers lose to the Lions to have now 5 straight losses in this scenario, this is very controversial, and I'm sure not a lot of people are going to like this, but they need to bench Aaron Rodgers if they lose on Sunday, because there's no way they're going to make the playoffs if you're losing to a team like the Lions. Let Jordan Love start the rest of the year, as he gets the experience the entire second half of the year, because it's important that he gets the experience and the reps. I think Jordan Love, he has some potential. I think if he gets more game time experience, I think he's got something going. But I am picking the Packers to win this game. I really don't think it's going to be by that much, to be honest with you. It's probably going to be a 3-point victory because the Lions, they're a team that competes from start to finish, a team that's never going to give up. And DeAndre Swift came back last week. Moving on to the Colts and the Patriots. The Patriots, they got the momentum back that they lost a little bit of against the Bears on MNF last week. I remember saying once they faced off against the Packers and lost, an overtime loss in a nationally televised game, that was really momentum when they lost the Cowboys last year. And it's a repeat of last year, where the Patriots, they just start going on a run when they barely lose in a game where everyone expects them to get blown out. And the emergence of Ramondre Stevenson these last few weeks. In fact, in fantasy, Ramondre Stevenson has had 20-plus points. I believe it's been 4 of the last 5 weeks. And even though Damien Harris came back against the Bears, I still think Bill Belichick is all in on Stevenson being the number 1 back in New England. And I'm picking the Patriots to win this one as they're taking on a Colts team that is pretty much just Jonathan Taylor, who's banged up right now. Nyheim Hines just got traded to the Bills, who Frank Reich was very adamant was going to get a very larger role this season. And now they have Sam Ehlinger at quarterback. And he almost won his debut last week. I will give him that. But the Commanders, they came from behind to win that in the final minute of the game. But I am going with the team that has the more positive momentum going, and that is the Patriots. Moving on to the Bills and the Jets. The Jets, a crushing defeat last week against the Patriots. But when you look at the box score and the stats, it was a game where the Jets, they probably could have won. In fact, they had an opportunity to seize momentum in that game late in the first half with a pick six, but it got called back due to penalty. I don't think the Bills are going to necessarily destroy the Jets, but I think they will beat the Jets. I just feel like if the Jets still had Breece Hall, they would have a stronger chance to win this one, but I'm going with Buffalo. The question is by how much. Next up, we had the Vikings and the Commanders. And I am sensing a trap game potentially for the Vikings. I almost picked the Commanders in this one. As the last couple of weeks, the Commanders have been a much better team with Taylor Heineke under center. But the Vikings coming into this game with newly acquired T.J. Hawkinson, a very productive tight end, which I covered earlier. And I just think this Vikings offense, I think they have the potential to be a top 5 offense when the season ends. And something I found interesting, Justin Jefferson has not had a receiving touchdown since week 1. And I honestly think he's due. I'm going to say Justin Jefferson scores a touchdown, and the Vikings win by a field goal. I think the Commanders, I think that they're going to be in a position to win this game, but Kirk Cousins comes up clutch against his former team. Next up, we had the Vegas Raiders and the Jaguars. The Raiders, they really looked terrible last week. 24-0 loss against the Saints. Their offense didn't get past midfield until 3 minutes left in the game. While the Jaguars, the first game without James Robinson, Travis Etienne absolutely has a feast against an elite run defense like the Broncos. And if he's going to have that kind of performance against a defense like the Broncos, I can only imagine what he's going to do against a Raiders defense that just absolutely got torched by Alvin Kamara. I think Jacksonville wins this by at least 10 points. don't know if I can trust the Raiders right now to win a game, let alone score a touchdown. So I am picking Jacksonville, as even though they lost last week, still some positive signs with them. As Travis Etienne, they have, I think, a franchise running back. Next up, the Seahawks and the Cardinals. And this is going to be a good one. Now, these two teams faced off against each other just a few weeks ago, and it was a way low scoring of a game. It was 19-9. I expect there to be some more points scored in this game, as there is more factors in this game. Kenneth Walker has now emerged himself as the RB1 in Seattle, as he was just starting his performance as an RB1. Well, for the Cardinals, DeAndre Hopkins is back. And in the last 2 weeks that DeAndre Hopkins has been involved in this Cardinals passing game, he has been targeted double digits. He's gotten double-digit targets in the 2 games that he's been back. And I'm 50-50 in this game. But I am going to pick the Seahawks in this one. And I would not be surprised if this turned into a shootout. If this turned into an epic 45-41 type of game. But I am picking the Seahawks. Next up, we have the Rams and the Buccaneers. And never would I have thought that both these teams were going to be below 500 when they took part in the game of the week. The last 2 Super Bowl champions going at it, and they're both below 500. Cooper Kupp, he suffered an injury late in the game last week, but he says he's good to go. While the Buccaneers, they do have a couple days rest from playing on Thursday night last week. And Tom Brady came out with the personal news about the divorce. And to tell you the truth, I actually think that is what was bothering him this entire time. I mean, it officially got revealed to us that he was having his divorce finalized. And I think that was in his head throughout the first 8 weeks of the year. And I think now that it's off his chest, everybody knows about it, he's open about it and honest about it, I think we're going to see the Buccaneers start to go on a tear here. And I think they're going to beat a Rams team that has really struggled scoring points. Well, the Buccaneers have as well, but this might be like a 17-14 game. But I am picking the Buccaneers to win this one. Next, we have the Titans and the Chiefs on Sunday Night Football. The Titans coming off a dominant win against the Texans, a big performance by Derrick Henry, but the Chiefs are coming off of their bye. And what is the worst thing to have happen when you have to face the Chiefs? The Chiefs that are coming off of a bye week. Even though the Titans dominated the Chiefs last year, I think they return the favor, as it's unknown if Tannehill or Willis is going to start at quarterback, but I don't think it matters. I think the Chiefs win either way. But I am interested to see if Derrick Henry is able to keep the Titans in it. As long as they're using Derrick Henry and keeping Mahomes and the Chiefs offense on the sidelines, they're going to be in the game. But I just think the Chiefs win this one. I think it could potentially come down to whether or not Derrick Henry has a performance that is dominant. But I'm picking the Chiefs to win in a close one. And finally, Monday Night Football, the Ravens and the Saints. The Saints, they finally got a win that they were so desperate for against the Raiders. While the Ravens, they are the more rested team in this matchup, playing on Thursday last week. And who knows what the injury report's going to look like for the Saints. I sound like a broken record saying it. Michael Thomas, is he going to play this week? I mean, Saints fans are saying that he wishes he can be out there. Other people are saying, well, Michael Thomas doesn't want to play because he's getting paid to do nothing. But either way, I'm picking the Ravens. And that will do it for my NFL picks this week. Like, share, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, have a great day and enjoy the NFL this weekend.